it is that time of year, Coach Mike McCarthy. Merry Christmas Eve. Did you play any Christmas games, Christmas Eve games? What is kind of your MO? How many Thanksgiving games? What is your MO on playing on these big holidays? And I don't want to say the honor it is, but truly, like you are being tasked with entertaining the United States of America during their holidays. So I think it is a big honor to play on these, monumental holidays, Coach. Is that how you view it as well? And have you ever talked about that with your team?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's another national game opportunity. You know, everybody's watching. You know, and obviously probably been, part of a lot of Thanksgiving games. And and players and coaches, you love playing on a national stage. And I think really the real joy is after the victory. You get that extra time off with your family. So you may your Christmas Day or the Thanksgiving Day may be adjusted some, but there's definitely more family time on the back end. So I personally always enjoyed playing on the holidays. I thought it was great for your team, and really it was kind of nice. You get a little bye week right before the playoffs too. So I think those guys will enjoy playing tomorrow. Frankly,
yeah, the football people calendar is always like, yeah, Thanksgiving's Thursday, Friday, maybe Saturday, maybe Tuesday. So we will kind of see how it all goes, because having to work, having to practice, even the teams that aren't playing on Christmas obviously have an appearance, they have a game. Obviously, a lot of them very, very important. It's a lucky part of our job to be able to be a part of the holiday season for everybody. Let's talk about some of the teams that are currently dancing. We talked about the slate for Christmas, and it was like projection of these teams and then what actual reality of teams are by this point. A little bit different than what we expected in the preseason when we heard about these. What do you think about the slate and the storylines of these teams? Obviously, Denver, favored by 13.5 against Kansas City. They can still go win it all. But Detroit, Dallas, Washington, Minnesota, Kansas City, all teams, because they're on the Christmas Day, we all thought this, not just the fans, but also the league, all teams that could be on a Super Bowl run, and only one of them are. What do you think that goes to say about these teams and maybe the NFL as a whole, Coach?
Well, I think it goes back to our parity conversation from a few weeks back. I mean, it's here, and it's been here for the last 30 years, and it keeps getting stronger. I think if you look at all the things that have happening just with scheduling, the division games, some early but most late, and I just think the health of your team, the challenge of getting through the injury, part of this thing, it shows up more and more every year, because you look at some of those teams there that with Washington and Kansas City, and some of these teams have had Detroit obviously had to deal with as far as injuries. It's part of the challenge. 17 games, and I don't know how many more teams will be in the playoffs this year that weren't in last year, and I think it bodes well for the NFL, and I think it bodes well for the fans. So. But yeah, it's hard to project these games. Definitely harder today than it was probably 15, 20 years ago.
Parity is what they're striving for. Every league's looking for it, because every fan base says, holy shit, we can do it. This could be us next year. We could kind of turn this entire thing around.
36th straight year with at least 4 new teams. There's 5 right now from last year. If the Panthers go, that would make it 6.
36 straight years?
Yes.
Okay, so you can go from actual outhouse to playoff penthouse, and we have a lot of teams doing that this year. It was actually one of our main headlines from Monday in our Overreaction Monday. It's like, hey, there are some teams that are absolutely shite and then had a quick culture change and a turnaround. So if your fan base is going through it right now, or your team is ass, there should be a lot of hope with what the league has shown over the last 36 years now. Now, let's talk about first time 21 years, something that you know a lot about. NFC East had a back-to-back division champion in the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think that says about the Philadelphia Eagles? And are they playing their best ball now whenever it comes time to be playing your best ball?
I think it says, first it says a lot about that division. I think the fact that it's changed, almost yearly says a lot about how competitive all 4 teams are, and the rivalries, within that division. So, but yeah, I think for Philadelphia, they've had some ups and downs, and you want to play your best football here down the stretch, and I think they definitely have better football in front of them, because they to win that division, like you've already stated, 2 years in a row, it's tough duty with no question. So it's important for them to play well these next 2 weeks to get some momentum and going into the playoffs.
Watching Saquon get into pain and then have some free running space was a trip down memory lane for
Truly.
John's, I assume. It was like, oh, this is what it was every game last year. Every single game. He broke the record for most rush yards in a season. Obviously, there's a bunch of different conversations there, 17 games, and it was all the way through the Super Bowl. It just says he was on a good team, but he had more rush yards than anybody ever. The explosive play thing stat was like most in the history of the game, most 20-plus yard plays. And his yards before contact would have been a top 5 rusher in the NFL, just his yards before contact. So it's like last year what we saw out of this Philadelphia Eagles team was explosive run after explosive run. And then obviously when you have that, that opens up the pass game a lot more. And now granted, the pass game wasn't exactly thrilled. First Super Bowl team to outrush instead of outpass themselves throughout an entire season in a long time. Basically a changing of the guard, becoming a rushing league almost with what the Philadelphia Eagles did. And then this year, they were still winning games, but it didn't look the same. It didn't look as great. It didn't look as spectacular. And it was like against the Commanders, felt like they kind of got their groove back a little bit. And then more people get healthy, more people get on the field, and then all of a sudden, Sirianni's got a pissed-off team going into playoffs who just won a division back-to-back for the first time in 21 years in the NFC East, and they're playing their best ball. It's like, are the Eagles about to go back-to-back with the Super Bowl in a time where we don't really know who's the clear-cut best outside of maybe the Patriots with how they've been playing against everybody?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the big thing, you obviously talked about the rushing production, but I know my time in the NFC East, that offensive line in Philadelphia, history is going to be very, very kind to that group. I think you're going to have a number of Hall of Famers come out of that. I think the stretch that they've had as far as health in the offensive line and the productivity, the prior years I've been very, very impressed with, and obviously having to compete with those guys twice a year directly. So, I think really their play, and it's you say it every year when this playoff slate is set. It's the battle in the trenches is a thing I know I've always looked at first, and I look at the years that we were productive in the playoffs versus the years that we were not. That those battles up front are critical to your success in playoff football.
Okay, so I don't want to start piecing things together, although it is Christmas Eve and a lot of people are going to be doing all those things around the family dinner table. But where are you from, Mike McCarthy? Where are you from?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15217.
Okay, I'm from 15239. I believe Sirianni, Western Pennsylvania as well. I believe his dad had time at Western Pennsylvania. Signetti, obviously, sure. Western Pennsylvania. We all, AQ obviously comes on the show every single week. We all kind of have a similar mindset that the trenches are where it's at. Do you think it's because, like, Pittsburgh football? Like, do you think that is what Western Pennsylvania, AFC North. Basically, we've been accustomed to just obviously everybody talks about Steel Curtain, but let's not forget about Jerome Bettis and the entire, it's just a run all the way back to Frank. I mean, it's a run place. So do you think that is potentially from, birth, you were going to be a big-time trenches guy? Do you think that is something that has happened, or do you think just most football people are trenches people?
No, I'm buying it. I'll buy anything from Western Pennsylvania for sure. Absolutely. But I think you look at the history of the game. You look at championship football. I mean, I don't know if you can go through all the Super Bowl champions and look at their O&D line and it was not a strength of their football team, or definitely part of the strength of their football team, because you have to have it. You can't. Defense. I always look at the defense as the thermostat of your football team. They regulate how the game is. Because the defense can always keep you in the game. And you watch these playoffs. Every one of these games is going to come down to a 2-minute drill. It's going to come down to that last series. So you got that defense that keeps you in the game, and that's why, frankly, I think you have to spend a tremendous amount of time on the game management and the 2-minute drills and so forth, because that's how you advance in playoffs, and that's how you eventually probably have to win the Super Bowl. So it starts in day one. But the trenches are, you got to have it, and it's hard to win a championship if you don't have a defense, regulating those football games for you. And I could just tell you, of 18 years being a head coach, I've had one top 5 defense that I've coached, and that's the year we won the Super Bowl. So there's definitely some statistical, support that lays it out there for you.
Yeah, and it feels like this year there's a lot more elite defenses or great defense, at least more than in past. I think way back in the past, from my perspective, 1 or 2 good returners in the league. Okay, 1 or 2 good returners in the league. Then it became like, hey, everybody saw that was an added benefit. We're going to try to get a good returner. This year, I think it's the same thing whenever it comes to this defensive conversation. I think there has been in the past like 2, 3 defenses that maybe we thought could win a Super Bowl. Now it feels like it's more prevalent. Like, hey, do you think that's because defenses are catching up to the modern offense? Do you think that's why that is? Do you think defenses are getting better? Or do you think defensive players are getting better? Why do you think defenses are maybe getting better across the board?
I think it definitely have caught up without question. I think the biggest thing that I've seen is, these rule changes and who adapts to them, the quickest. And, I could remember, when they'd taken the helmet out of the game and just the way it was, officiated, it was so hard to play safety in our game. I mean, there's a point that you're wondering if, some of these guys were really going to be able to play. So, but, the coaches and the players, they got it done, focused on the techniques and made it safer as far as taking the head out of the game in that particular area as far as crossing routes and those kind of collisions and so forth. So I think the adjustments of these rule changes is now we're into a full generation of that. So we're it's definitely being coached and taught in the high school and the college, and so I think our game as a whole is there's that you have more flow than where you make an argument through the early 2000s, really from 2015, 18 that there's so much change in the rules and and officiating. Those guys even had a tougher job. What was a foul, what wasn't a foul, and those things can affect outcome of games. So I think that's what I see has been a big part of it. But I think these D lines in today's game are as dominant as I've ever seen. If you don't have 4 number 1 picks on your defensive front, I mean you're behind the times. And I think if you're looking for value distribution, how you build a roster, if you just want to look for a blueprint, 4 number 1 picks in that front is kind of the norm. And that's why, as an offensive line, you probably ought to consider having 3 number 1 picks, as far as the value distribution of how important it is to win up front. So I think that's something that has always been there. But I think everything's heightened because, people like yourself and the conversations and the detail of the conversations that I see now, that being able to, sit out and watch people talk about the game. It's the education and the expertise is so much more available for our fans. And I think we've helped educate the fan base better. And, it's not, in gambling probably has advanced that too some. Oh. Not that I gamble, but
if you did, hey, it would be bad. You hit on so many things there. The generational heads-up football shit, I do think that was huge help. I think that was huge because all the OG football players were in the middle of hey, I've been taught this one way my whole life, and now at the highest level against the fastest people, I'm having to think. And I think that's what you're talking about with flow. Now everything's just natural. These guys have their heads up. They're going to the side. Now, some people will still say it's a little bit softer, but we're still getting huge hits now. Mm-hmm. And the hits aren't necessarily the crown. We're getting big-time shots from shoulder hitting strike zone. It's like these kids have been doing this since high school. So, they have perfected. There's still dogs out there. They've just perfected where we're going with this thing and what they call. I think you're 100% spot on that. And then you're talking about the 4-1s up at the front. Philadelphia Eagles, to your point, that's what the Philadelphia Eagles had. They also had the trenches and the run game going. It's feels like whenever things change, it all comes back to the same. And maybe we're playing the best version of this football right now than we had been for the last few years. It's a good time. The games are great, and even 44-year-olds can get back in there and spin that thing. Hey, Phil Rivers, not bad. Not
that
bad.
was impressive.
Okay.
Were you at the game?
Oh yeah,
It looked like a great atmosphere.
I was doing everything I could for him. Mm-hmm. I was doing everything I could for Phil. I was trying to be as quiet as possible when he was making the checks. I guess watching the TV, everybody could hear everything he was saying. Are we doing that to every quarterback? Are we doing that to every quarterback? Are we having the mics all the way up at 10 whenever he's speaking? How come everybody at home knew Orlando was going to be the quick for Tyler Warren, pick 6 for D Winters? And then he even talks to him afterwards. He goes, "You heard me do that in the first half earlier?" And D goes, "Yeah, I heard that." And then you did it again or whatever. He goes, "That's all right. Good play. And he jogs off. And it's well, you know why I heard it? And sure, maybe just his ears, although I I'm not 100% sure if you're able to hear anything after hearing that Lucas Oil Stadium one time. But maybe it's because the TV had Phil Rivers on 10, and it was echoing through the goddamn sidelines, maybe. I mean, everything he said, we heard, and obviously he's making checks. But they had this clip come out yesterday on Inside the NFL, which is now available on X from NFL Films. And by the way, that's right home for him. It's a clip show. They showcase Aaron Rodgers, okay? And he is talking to a guy that he's been putting over all year, Kenny Gainwell. Publicly, he's been putting him over. He's been saying, I can't believe we're only paying this guy this much. This guy's so good at football, which once again goes back to leadership, okay? Whenever you're publicly putting people over, they know that you're on their side, so then they want to show up for you in an even bigger way. Aaron knows that Kenny Gainwell is severely underpaid. This guy is severely underpaid, which could be a little bit of a issue, especially with how he's performing versus other people who are making a shit ton of money in the locker room. So Aaron Rodgers being like, I like this guy, this is my guy, and going to bat for him publicly is a form of leadership that I don't think people are really talking about whenever you talk about rallying the troops and getting the best out of people, no matter what position they are. And then on the field against the Detroit Lions, have you seen the clip of him talking to Kenny Gainwell?
No, I didn't see it.
Boom, here it is.
Oh, you talking when he changed it and told him to go to a go?
Yes.
Yes.
This side, run flat to the right. Motion all the way out, run a go, all the way out.
Rodgers off his back foot, throws it down the way, and look at Gainwell.
And he scores.
Thinks he has a touchdown.
He catch it. He catch it. Excellent.
Okay, so, Coach, that is a play that I think we don't really see much from quarterbacks anymore. Phil was doing some of it. Aaron obviously doing it. And Bruce Arians, who was in here yesterday, he's like, that's a quarterback. Like, that is what a quarterback is right there. What is your take on that play? And how normal or common was that back in the day versus maybe now, Coach?
Oh, I think that's, of all the quarterbacks that I've had the privilege to work with, his at the line of scrimmage command and they all see it great at the line of scrimmage. I think just the way these young quarterbacks coming in the league and the way they're with what they have available. But there's one thing of understanding it and seeing it, but to apply it in real time, I always felt Aaron had such a gift there. And if anything, the challenge was him playing so much faster than his other 10 teammates. So, but yeah, his ability to process at the line of scrimmage and get that done in real time. I always thought he was exceptional. He played at a different level in that area, and that's a great example of it right there.
How much does that happen? Because he's literally just drawing it up basically in the dirt there. Okay, they're doing this. You definitely have a linebacker on you right now. Instead of running the flat, Kenny, let's go. And Kenny, by the way, is told to go to the flat. Okay, still looking forward in his thing. He's told to go to the flat. So when Kenny said, all right, I'm going to flat. Who knows what the actual play call was? And then 2 seconds later, motion all the way out and run a go. Yep, you got it. I'm out of here. Just not even questioning. Like that, I think that showcases a lot of buy-in, too, that nobody really talks about in what these Steelers have going on, Coach.
Yeah, and what I like about it, too, is, really the second part of the play. That was the pre-snap. But look, you watch what he did in the post-snap. Because he's obviously looking off the safety. He's holding the safety on the backside hash. So he's clearly going there. Once he confirms he has the one-on-one there with the linebacker. So the ability to take the safety out of the play too is a big part of that too. So not only to see the check, to recognize that the man coverage, but to also in real time have the presence to hold off the safety, and then to make the throw off his back foot. So, that's quarterback play, and that's a big part of his greatness.
Yeah, certainly. And then also making a catch.
Yeah.
Getting up there and doing it. That's awesome. And now, granted, he's
fun.
He deserves a lot of money, so he's on contract here.
Sure.
So those types of catches certainly help. But I think everybody around him is like, he's already earned whatever contract is coming. This guy is unbelievable. But speaking of unbelievable, 19 straight years of a non-losing season. Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, Coach. Mike Tomlin, 19 straight years of not losing, 22 straight for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a whole. He got his 200th win on Sunday. Can you just talk as a head coach how hard this is and how impressive this run is? And then I think you're pretty close to 202 yourself, aren't you?
185. I looked it up, 185. Hey, that's a lot of weight. Hey, that's a lot of weights.
Okay, Coach.
That's a lot of weights. Well, hey, say anything? Doing a thing? That's incredible. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, 200 wins. Actually, I'm just I'm so happy to see Mike, get the recognition and love that he deserves. We talked about Mike a few weeks back here on the show, and this is, to me, is the reality of who he is as a coach. I mean, to do that for 19 seasons is incredible. I mean, you want that in your leader. You want that in your leadership of how you train the team, and to do that 19 years in a row it's an incredible. He's a Hall of Famer in my view, and I'm just really happy for him to see him recognized properly, and this is what he deserves.
All right, so who are all you olds that have been head coaching around for a while? Andy, McCarthy, Sean Payton would count. Sean Payton would count, I believe. Mike Tomlin. Who else?
John Harbaugh.
John Harbaugh, I guess, because and I guess Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll. Yeah.
Which, hey,
Don't have to
The
bring
run,
him up.
Pete.
Jim Harbaugh.
yeah, but,
Jim Harbaugh.
But
Jim's
yeah,
up
I
there.
guess 2. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he was with the Niners though.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, it's obviously, if you're ass, you're not getting that, So it's like you don't survive that long for being an ass at your job at anything in the NFL. True meritocracy, that will actually catch up with you if it's not going how it's supposed to go or how they're expecting or how they are hoping it would go. But Coach Tomlin always winning. Tell me what that, because you know Yinzers, shit, Yinzers. So whenever you talk to them, they're like, winning season, cool. Yeah, this is fun. All right, this is fun. We'd like to win a Super Bowl. Feels like after watching this team beat the Lions the way they did, the Steelers fans are starting to be like, wait a minute, maybe this team can win a Super Bowl. Yeah. It was just a few weeks ago when they were saying, we're done, this team is cooked, they can't win a Super Bowl. Yeah, we'll win games, but there's no way when it matters they'll win. Now they get a win over the Lions. They play the way they do. It's a tough win, obviously crazy ending there. But they think to themselves, actually, our team can win a Super Bowl. What are your thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers? And what are your thoughts on what they would need to do to win a Super Bowl, and can they do it?
Yeah, I think I can. I mean, Sunday I called home, right during the game there, the Pittsburgh-Detroit game, and it kind of reminded me of old times. My mom was cooking, everybody was there at the house watching the game, and everybody was there. Everybody's so excited now, just like you've said, and they're talking about winning Super Bowls again back here, and that's an exciting time. It reminded me when I was a kid, back in the 70s. So, that's what I'm rooting for. I think Green Bay still has enough to make a run here. Let's get healthy and get this playoff berth here this week. But yeah, it's exciting times in Pittsburgh, and that's the way it should be. And it's great to see the fans just stay behind this team. But I know, just talking to family and friends, this past weekend, everybody's fired up, and it was cool to see that.
I love the nostalgia, good vibes, because Pittsburgh is obviously a place where when the Steelers are winning, the town is much happier than whenever the Steelers are losing. And we actually asked everybody that's going to be on the show today in front of a microphone what their Christmas wish would be in football. What would their ball Christmas wish be? What was yours, Coach McCarthy?
Well, I'm sorry I jumped ahead. I'm wishing for
perfect timing.
I'm wishing for a Pittsburgh Super Bowl. I think it'd be great to get back to see the black and gold. And really, just when I was asked the question, I was thinking about my conversation, with my mother and my siblings this past Sunday. So kind of had that vibe, it had that 70s vibe to it, and I think it'd be awesome to see these guys go on a run here.
Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers going into Pittsburgh after he was just booted out with Achilles and a half out of New York, goes into the darkness, booted out of Green Bay, and then he goes to Pittsburgh, a town that. And their team that was basically like, hey, figure it out here. They go all in. Shout out to the con artist if they were able to do this. Spending $30 million on a wide receiver that's never been in Pittsburgh before. Okay. Now, granted, he's going to miss a couple games, and that whole contract thing is certainly up for conversation. And there's an investigation going on, and that whole thing. But nonetheless, they make a lot of plays that they don't normally do. Like, that is not what the Pittsburgh Steelers normally do, go outside the building. Jonnu Smith, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay. You start naming off all these things. The amount of money they have invested on the defensive side of the roster. It's like everything that they've done this past year has been a little bit out of the normal, because the normal for the Pittsburgh Steelers is we're sustained greatness. We don't need to do all the weird, desperate moves that everybody else does to try to make their team good. We don't fire our coaches. We don't spend crazy. We build from within. This is what we are. This is just, that is what Steelers have always been, is like, we are who we are. So this past offseason, basically making a declaration of doing something vastly different. And I know it's a different GM as opposed to
Kevin Colbert.
Kevin, yeah.
Good guy. Could have drafted me, didn't. So, okay, sick. But he was a good guy to me. Khan obviously doing things very differently right now, but they also made a statement like, hey, we don't know how long this group has as Pittsburgh Steelers. And a big part of, like, you listen to Joey Porter, whenever he got announced he was going to the Steelers Hall, he was like, we felt like we did our job because we brought a trophy into that building. Like, that was kind of how they view it. Like, Steelers alumni still hang out. And what they're proud of is, like, the decoration, which is the Lombardi that they added into the facility, into the stadium. So it's like, I feel like this group that Steelers have all kind of acknowledge, like, hey, we need to do something different. And I appreciate that they did it. And if it pays off, Yinzers are going to be pumped. And then next year, what are we doing now? Okay, we don't got a quarterback. We got I mean, it's just immediately into that.
8's coming back next year.
What's that?
8's coming back.
Not if you win the Super Bowl. He's not.
8 for 8. 7.
That
This one was for 7.
This one was for 7.
This one's for 7. He's going to say, this one's for 7, Ben. And then he's going to go next year 8 for 8.
Oh. 8 for 8 actually does work.
Oh, my God. That's his wish list. That's his Big Mike's football Christmas wish. I love to hear that about talking to your family back in Pittsburgh and kind of feeling alive. It's special. All right, let's talk about some other stuff. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, Coach, the Pro Bowl rosters were announced yesterday, and I think the Pro Bowl has kind of just turned into a shit show that nobody cares about. But for you, I believe you had 5 of your former players got selected yesterday. What is your just opinion on the Pro Bowl as a whole? And also, is there a chance that maybe you're heading down to Disney World in Orlando to be head coach of the Pro Bowl games?
Oh.
No, no, I don't plan on going to Disney World anytime soon.
It's a huge honor. That would be a
massive honor.
Huge honor to coach the Pro Bowl.
Could get 186.
Yeah, maybe win 186.
Yeah.
Try to work that in that work. And nonetheless, sorry, we apologize.
Yeah, I don't think that counts. But no, I love the Pro Bowl. Great memories as a family coaching the Pro Bowl. And I can remember my daughter Gabby always wanting to go to the Pro Bowl, and I'd say, "No, honey, we want to go to the Super Bowl. We've been to too many Pro Bowls." So I was very, very fortunate to coach it a number of times. But it's a great honor. I always enjoyed the moments of when you acknowledge the players in the team meetings and when you announce it. But you also have the disappointment where just this voting process. It sometimes seems where a young player gets voted in maybe the next year instead of the year that he actually has that great season. So yeah, the voting process. I mean, you could pick that apart if you like, but it's a big deal. And because just like anything, when you do have acknowledgement from your peers, when the coaches and the players do vote on it, that I think that means the most. I always felt respect is what we all want in this game, and to be respected by your peers, it definitely carries a lot of weight. But no, it's the game itself and what's happened to it. Frankly, I think it's a shame. I thought the Hawaii setup was outstanding, but in with player safety and everything that goes on, the risk is, I do understand that and what they've done with it. So I think the league has done a really good job, trying to keep it intact. And it just, only watching it on TV, it looks like the guys do have fun with it. But the reward was always the families. To see the players and their families, and the time around the pool, and just the activities, and that was always, and my two sons still talk about it all the time. Some of the best times that they had was back at the Pro Bowl. So
yeah,
it is a big deal.